This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 228 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, I am diving into how to use Instagram Reels to build your brand with Britney Crosson. We have had a couple other episodes on Instagram Reels. They are all the rage right now. And Britney has seen extreme success with using Reels. Now, she is going to talk about one of her freebies that I want you to make sure that you hop over to the show notes and grab. If you are out walking, you want to just send me a DM at Jenny_Melrose. Just let me know that you would like me to send you her freebie that she is offering for Instagram Reels. One of the things that I want to make sure that I preface is that in order to do Instagram Reels to build your brand, which is the purpose, you are going to hear us really emphasize that in this episode, you also need to make sure that your Instagram profile is up to par and that you are doing things to get engagement and attract your ideal audience. So if you want her Reels, make sure that you send me a DM. I as well have my Instagram engagement guide that I think is going to benefit you if you are not quite positive that your account is ready for the growth that can come from Reels. Send me a DM that you would also like that, and I will make sure to send it to you. You also can always hop over to the show notes and grab both of these. All right, you guys, let's dive in. Hi, Britney. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Jenny.
Yes, I am so excited about this conversation. Before we jump into diving into all the things about how to use Instagram Reels to build your brand, will you introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Britney Crosson. I am the owner of Fun Love Media, which is a business that I started now. It's been more than a couple of years ago. I did freelance work before I officially finally just said, okay, this is a thing. I specialize really in social media management and content creation. So I'm really more on kind of I lean on the creative side because I have a background as a performer. I've been a dancer since I was a child and an actor here in Texas. I see you going, oh, now it all makes
so much sense.
Content makes sense, right? No, I never moved off to, Los Angeles or New York to be the actor and do the thing I had expected to do. But I've done a lot of stuff here in Texas, a lot of television, film, tons of theater, musical theater. So that's my background. And that's my heart. And that's where I belong inside my heart in that kind of space as a performer. So social media was like natural. I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me there's just millions of people out there that could see this? That's an amazing audience. So I started helping friends that were business owners. They're like, you're good at social media. I don't know what the hell to do. Please help me. And so they would kind of hire me here and there. And it started to become this thing. And I was like, this is weird. Now I'm one of those people that says, it just fell into my lap, which I never thought I would be that person. Because as a performer, you're like fighting for a job. And so anyway, so I started Fun Love Media and we're really focused on social media content. And it's been a really cool journey. Started the podcast, well over a year ago, which has been super fun, and have a membership where I help people as well. And just really talking all things social media. I love creating content. So I try to share as much information as I can to help other people do the same.
Yes. No, it does. Like so many dots were just connected for me when you told me about the performance background, because you do such a good job on and I'm always like, I could never, like, why can't I be like that outgoing and just so fun? And I'm like, it's just not my personality. But it totally makes sense now. Like
I should have a disclaimer. I should have a disclaimer on every video and be like, technically I am a trained professional. Okay. So don't be hard on yourself if you're not going to like go dance on your treadmill. It's okay. You don't have to do it like that. But that's one of the beautiful lessons about, that you learn, right? Along the way. You and I've talked about that before. Like, you don't have to do it like everybody else, but you can be inspired by each other and get some cool ideas.
Yes. And you're so authentic and it comes through. Like even when I was on your podcast as well. So we already did that previous interview, and your personality, the way they expect you to be, is exactly the way that I intended it to be. Not that I intended, but
because you said when we recorded my show that that's what you want. You really want people, if you're really being authentic online, and the goal is like, if they meet you in person or in a different setting, like how we did, that you're like what they thought you would be, or maybe better. But I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad.
No, of course. So Instagram right now, Instagram Reels are the latest and greatest tool on Instagram, right? So tell us a bit about your experience with Reels.
It has been an incredible journey, to say the least, using Instagram Reels. So I'll rewind just a little bit to give you some background. I actually started sharing on TikTok as far as like micro video content. So that's what this is called. If you're not familiar, micro content is shorter. It's very short content. It's like 15-second videos, 30-second videos. On TikTok, they can be a little bit longer. So I started there because, whenever the whole pandemic situation started in 2020, I had already been dabbling in that because as a performer, that was fun. Like it was normal to just be a grown person and go on the internet and dance or sing or be silly or have fun. And I was like, my dreams have come true. Like I've always been like, life should be a musical so we can all just break into dance. And that's what that basically was to me. And so I started using TikTok for fun. Long story short, I started realizing that doing that and just being me, like I finally, for the first time on social media, I had never been what anybody would consider fake. If somebody's followed me for the last 5 years, they know, but I just wasn't leaving it all on the table, is what I call it. I wasn't just putting it all out there and being like, screw it, just put it all out there, Britney. And I finally started doing that with TikTok and people loved it. And the videos really spread joy, which is like one of my purposes in life. So I was like, well, let's keep doing this. Well, Instagram Reels came out, later in the year in 2020. And I recognized how amazing that was because I already had that experience on TikTok, which is a similar idea. So I just thought, gosh, this is so beautiful that Instagram has this because an Instagram audience is special. It really is special. And I kind of feel like this might sound kind of silly. Like an Instagram audience many times can be like more of your qualified buyer. Like, you know what I mean? So agree. I mean, I feel like on TikTok, tons of people have built great businesses on it and it's wonderful for certain people, but it's just a different vibe. Each social platform is different. So when it happened with Instagram, I was like, well, here we go. This is amazing. And luckily I was one of the first people to get it. I don't mean literally individual people to get it, but like there were phases, right? Like some people got it the first week, some people got it the second and so on. And the stars aligned and I was able to be one of the first people to get it and just started going for it and was so excited to have the opportunity to just have people have that micro content. Our patience are a little short these days, right? Like we like to see quick things.
Yes. And you do a beautiful job with it too. So what is your Instagram so that we can make sure that I'm sure people are going to be like out walking and listening to this and be like, well, I want to see.
Yeah. It's at Britney Crosson. So it's Britney. If you're a Britney Spears fan, you spell it like Britney Spears, Crosson, Crosson. And I have lots of reels on there dating back from whenever it started.
So what have you seen with it? Let's talk growth and followers. And then I definitely want to talk about the qualified leads because that's so important.
Yeah. So what have I seen with Instagram Reels in general? Like
as far as your follower growth, what have you?
Well, as far as, and my growth, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
No,
yeah. Oh, the growth has been astounding. Now I've got to give another disclaimer here that I have had, some viral videos. So that really skyrockets your following. And that's a whole other topic in itself. I did an episode of my show about that actually, because it's a very interesting process if you've never gone through that before to have a viral video, even if it's kind of mini viral, right? So like a smaller account, if you have 100,000 views, that's a ton of views, right? But maybe a bigger account, it would be 3 million or whatever. So I did have that help because I've had some viral videos on Instagram Reels. So I think that really helped skyrocket the following. But the numbers are insane. It's like in a 5-month, I think it's about a 5-month time period, I gained 5,000 followers. And I can almost 100% credit that to my use of Reels. And it's crazy because it's because I'm the content, excuse me, I'm losing my train of thought. The content I've put out is authentic and it's stuff that I was doing anyway. You know what I mean? So that's important, right? If you're going to stay on brand and stay focused, because if you, like I said, whenever I was talking about this on my show, like, it's funny. It happens to some people. You might have like a fluke situation where you took this video of your puppy and it's so cute and it goes viral and you get all these new followers and it's so exciting and they all love the video and they share it and like 2 million people see it and they're like, we're ready for more puppy content. And you're like, uh-oh, that's not what I do. Right. So that right there is a reason why, staying on brand and staying focused is important. So that's what's happened with me. I was already creating this kind of content. It's already authentic to what I'm doing and putting out into the world. And by doing it consistently and being real, it's helped me grow a ton.
Yes. So good. Now, talk to me about the qualified leads, because something you just said is super important, right? That example you gave was great because I think that that's what people think. I'm going to put up this thing about my kid and is it going to be the right people that it then goes viral and has nothing to do with my recipes or how I decorate my house. So what has happened with the leads as far as like people, the audience that has come to you? Are they the right people for you?
They are mostly the right people. When you have viral videos of any sort, odds of you getting some kind of interesting mix are there, they're possible and it definitely happens. So I can't say that 100% of the people, but it's a much higher percentage for me, it seems, on Instagram versus TikTok, at least the way that my business has been structured, right? Because I was already structured in this way of it being Instagram friendly. A lot of those people have been following me for years. So we have this like background together and it's more solid and strong. And TikTok was newer and fun. And I didn't have that business model for it. And you could, if anybody ever wanted to, you could, of course. But yeah, so I feel like what's happened is it's been a kind of, what would you call it? Maybe trickle down effect, but also kind of like, it's kind of been a widespread growth for my business, all over really. Cause I have multiple businesses. So like some of the people have become, customers for my wine business. My husband and I have a side business that we sell wine. And so some people are for that. And because a lot of our content is funny wine stuff. Right. And some of it's funny this stuff or funny that stuff. But I also have gained like regular social media clients. It's really been across the board. And I think it's just because, well, I think it's for a lot of reasons, but I've been working on social media for so many years. And so here's some hope for somebody that might be frustrated that it is a long game. Me gaining 5,000 followers in 5 months is not typical. And it was a lot of help from viral videos. But I bet you if I hadn't had the viral videos, I still would have gained at least a couple thousand because of being just so consistent.
Okay. So talk to me about that consistency. How often are you posting a reel in a week?
I am posting a reel five times a week. Okay. Maybe more. And this is all, when you talk about frequency, it really depends upon the person's goal, right? So it's an unpopular opinion, but if somebody says that's the way I want to grow, I specifically want to grow because I'm creating content that is either entertaining, educational, inspiring. And that's my method. It's not ads. It's not, calls, discover, whatever. And it's really just that. Then you should be creating and sharing often. You really should, if that's your thing. If you want to incorporate it as part of your overall structure, you still should share often, but maybe not 5, 6, 7 times a week like me. Maybe it's 3. But I would never say do it once a week, to anybody if you're trying to really take advantage of it, especially right now. It's like with Instagram Reels, it's timing because it's still really new.
Yes.
And it's not super congested yet. It's not super saturated yet. And you can still take advantage of it, right? As a growth tool.
Yes.
But yeah, I share a lot.
No, and I think I'm glad that you're honest. Like a lot of what Instagram is saying is that that's what they are saying. They're recommending 5 to 7 times per week for Reels. And then they're saying to pull back your content possibly on your feed then, because you're doing the Reels anyways to your feed. You don't need to necessarily do a static photo then.
Exactly. And that's relieving to some people. You don't, it's not like you have to, if you already posted say 5 times a week, because you're really focused on Instagram and that's your thing, you don't have to also do 5 Reels a week. You can mesh it together and combine it. And you're right, because whenever you post a Reels video, you post it to your feed, which you should, by the way. Anybody wondering? Yes, do it because you have an option. It can replace a regular post. So it's fine.
Yes. No, that makes a ton of sense. So I really want, one of the things that for me, a lot of this has clicked now, understanding a little bit more about your business model, and then also seeing what you do on Instagram and what you do in your Reels and listening to you in Clubhouse. How have you used Instagram Reels to build your brand? Because you really like your podcast name, your name of your company, like it is all in line and makes so much sense. The second you said, I have this acting background and I love to perform, I'm like, oh, that's it. It's all on brand.
Right. How has it helped me build my brand? Well, it's huge. It's been huge. As soon as I did the thing that I said, almost a year ago. Well, now that's coming out over a year ago, right? Whenever everybody started staying at home so much with coronavirus and everything. When I finally just said, I am leaving it all on the table. Have I been a real version of myself? Yeah, of course. I haven't been fake to anybody, but I haven't really taken it to that next level because I know how to do that. I know how to perform. I have that skill set, right? And I think that's another thing with content creation that people should recognize, that look to what are your skills? What do you already know how to do? Do you know how to juggle? Do you know how to juggle fire? If you do, and you can work that into your content in a really cool, authentic way, that's going to get some people's attention. So you should be juggling. I mean, really, it's true. And as soon as I started really realizing, like, I'm not even using these abilities of mine. Plus, it's a dream of mine to perform for millions of people, and I'm not even trying. This is weird. So when I finally started doing that, and then of course, Reels came out, and it's just amazing. That visual people get is one of the most impactful things you can do on social media for your brand, to have that video visual for people on a consistent basis, right? I mean, how much do we all remember like somebody because we've seen them over and over and over? And I stay really focused too. That's another thing. Like, it's funny because some people might be wondering, how is dancing on something, maybe a treadmill, who knows, or the floor, have to do anything with anything? Well, it has to do with my personality. And I work that into my inspirational messages of like, you can get yourself out there into the world, right? You just got to be creative with how you want to work it in there. But I think it's been huge for my brand. Huge.
Yes. And one of the things I think you did so well is that you didn't do something that everyone else was doing. And I think that is one of the things that I notice that people are doing. They just kind of copy each other. I see one person pointing, and all of a sudden every person that comes through my story, my Reels feed, everybody's pointing, or they're doing the clock. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys, come on, something else.
A lot of pointing.
Yes, so much pointing. But you did something entirely different. What inspired you to do? Because for those who haven't looked yet, you have to go, because 1, they're entertaining. 2, you're so athletic to not fall on your face. I have no idea how you do that. Like, I was an athlete, and there's no way I could do what you do on that treadmill. What made you decide to do the treadmill? So you dance on the treadmill and singing a song, and it's normally inspirational that's like combined with your messaging.
Right. This is going to sound so obnoxious. I just did. I don't know. You know what's so funny actually about the story of that? My first ever like really big viral video that got over 1 million views. I think it has like 2 million, which for my audience size is a lot, on TikTok, was me I was on the treadmill and I started dancing on the treadmill, but the words coming up on the screen were my story of deciding to dance on the treadmill. That's the first viral video. It's so funny, proving people love a story. But yeah, I mean, I already dance. I really mean it whenever I say I wish that life was a musical, because I just wish that we could just be walking and then just be like, da, 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 and just start, like we all dance. And then it's all like, we already know the choreography all together. It's just, and so I'm always dancing no matter what, including on the treadmill. I am a runner. I started running on the treadmill whenever my son, who is 9, was a baby. And a lot of runners are anti-treadmill because they say it's boring. But for me, that was how it worked. And so I would be listening to my music and I'm on the treadmill and I'm bopping along, right? And then sometimes I would kind of dance or whatever. And I don't know, one day in 2020, I just thought, why don't you just set up your camera, your phone, and record this just for fun? I was always looking for content things. And I did. And I look back at those first videos, which those first videos you'd actually have to find on TikTok. But I'm like, oh no, that was not, that was not good. It's very slow. I was very safe and very cautious, and you get better over time. So it's just something that naturally came about. And whenever I got such a good response, I was like, give the people what they want, Yeah.
You found your own little niche. It was genius. It really was.
Thank you.
What would you say? We kind of touched on it. Like I talked about the pointing a little bit, but what is the biggest mistake you're seeing when it comes to using Instagram Reels?
Well, the biggest mistake may sound dumb, but like is not using it. First of all, if you want to grow on Instagram, or if you want to grow in content creation in that way of being creative, just somewhere online, and you're not using Instagram Reels consistently, especially right now in this beginning phase of it, that's the biggest problem. The second problem is if you're not using it consistently and often, but then we move on to somebody who maybe is using it pretty consistently and often. First of all, being off brand. I mentioned that earlier, like, I understand at first it might take some trial and error to figure out what kind of video works for you and what feels good and what's fun, creative, interesting, fascinating, whatever you want to call it. But don't make them about random crap. Like, it needs to be about your thing. You need to be focused on your brand, just like you would with any other content. And you can get inspiration from other people. It's okay. You don't want to copy exactly, but scroll through the reels and let it inspire you and then put your twist on it. People just seem to, I don't know. They're like, well, I just made some reels. Like, well, what were they about? Were they about your thing? Were they helpful? Were they on brand? Right. And if they're not, that's a problem. And then another thing I think it's funny. I was just messaging with somebody on Instagram about this the other day, that I just wanted to see her face. Like, she was making this really cool homemade lip balm stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you could see the video. So this might actually apply also to somebody who is doing like a recipe and cooking videos, right? You have a camera set where you can see like the pot that you're cooking in or whatever, and it's stirring, and it's really neat because people like to see that. They like to see the action and the ingredients, but like I never saw her ever. You don't have to be all up in the camera all the time, but I really would have enjoyed seeing her face real quick, like with a stick of the lip balm at the end, and just swipe it on and smile. Boom. So show your face just real quick.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So I made a face when you said about the biggest mistake being you're not using them. And it wasn't because that's the wrong answer. The face was about the fact because I have not done them. And I have a lot of listeners that I think are in the same boat. And it comes from the fact that we are introverts. I definitely have a large bit of introverts because I am an introvert. And the time to figure it out, like to get that consistent and to be creative and have that content in video form, it just makes my head and the overwhelm kind of comes in. And I actually, for the first time yesterday, was setting up the video, had it all plotted out, what I was going to say. And then my mother-in-law happened to come over and I'm like, yep, this isn't getting done. But how do you go about creating that much content? So my first question is, how are you recording it? Are you recording it on your phone with the actual like video, or are you doing inside Instagram Reels and recording it that way?
Okay, I've done it different ways. So at first, as I've mentioned TikTok multiple times, at first I had so much TikTok content, like a lot for, many, many months, almost a year's worth. And I was able to just use those videos. Now, Instagram has best practices and suggestions, which we can talk about that as far as like using the TikTok video, because it has a TikTok logo on it and they don't necessarily like that. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's not ideal, but that's what I did at first, just to get specific with anybody wondering how in the hell I shared all this stuff. I already had content, but as time went on, I start to create new stuff. Of course, sometimes I still create in TikTok, but I also create within the Reels, within the Instagram app for Reels. I seldom record something outside of the app. Not to say that that's an issue. I think I have some Instagram coach friends that use different apps and things because they like them. It's really preference, but I like using it inside the Instagram app. I mean, if you're not familiar, you can use Instagram filters. That's really cool because some of them are very pretty. You can have fun with that. There's tons of great music to choose from if you want to have the music in the background, which I do recommend. You don't have to actually dance, but to use, trending music, popular music, especially when you're getting going. That's within the app right there. And you can have your text pop up on the screen at different times. I mean, I just like to use it within there. Yeah.
Okay. And then when it comes to content, are you batching? Do you like bang out a bunch of videos in one day? Because we're big batchers on this podcast.
Yes. Yes. Okay, good. So y'all know the batching situation. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I do. There are moments where I have, create a video here or there randomly just because I have a moment and I had an idea and I'm able to. That's another thing. If you find yourself in that situation and you have a creative idea and you actually are ready and prepared and you can take 15 minutes, do it right then. Just take the action. You'll be so glad you did because you can save it to your drafts and you can post it, whenever is good for you. But normally, like the other night, I made 10 videos all in one night. It took me, this is part of my job. So it might take somebody else longer, but I don't know. It took me an hour-ish.
Okay.
And came up with 10. So also don't overcomplicate things. If you're overwhelmed by the idea, you really want to do this with Reels and you really want to share a lot of them. The videos don't all have to be Hollywood major motion picture level of quality. You don't want them to be crap. You don't want them to be, you want to do your best and however is good for you and feels good for you, but they don't have to be overcomplicated. That's why a lot of people do the pointing. And there's nothing wrong with the pointing, if it makes sense. I've done the pointing. If you're not familiar, it's just, the words pop up on the screen and the person's pointing to them. And it's some sort of a message, like my top 3 tips for this or that. And that's something to consider if you're feeling overwhelmed. Don't overcomplicate it. Like make yourself a little list. I can make 5 Reels videos off of these things and whatever is within your brand or your business and the things that you share, that's what you do it on.
Right. Yes. I think someone said something to me. I don't know when it was. I don't know if I was listening to something, kind of popped into my head. It was about the fact that when they look at my Instagram, it inspires based on the content that I'm creating. And that kind of like sat with me for a second. And I was like, that's what my Reels should be. Why am I trying to make this so much harder than it is? And I think the reel that I mapped out, like I'm ready to do it. I do want to have multiple to sit down and actually do. And this week is kind of nuts, but it makes sense. Like it's on brand. It's things that I talk about. And I think that we can pull it that way. Yep. That's what.
Yeah. Well, you get it from other content. So if anybody needs to understand how Reels even works at a very long story short, is the reason why it's such a great growth tool is because of how it's actually laid out within the Instagram app. When people go to watch Reels videos, you're watching it and then you swipe up for the next one, swipe up, swipe up, swipe up. And it's just a feed of videos that Instagram has curated for your viewing pleasure, however their magical algorithms do so. And you're seeing videos of maybe it is someone you know, but most of them are not. And that's what's so cool. So if you're creating all these reels and you're putting them out there often and on a regular basis, you are reaching new people all the time, because that's how it works. Also, it's literally laid out on the screen, where on the right side of the screen, when you're watching a Reels video, you can just tap boop and it follows right then. Now that sounds very lazy, but you're not making a multi-step process anymore for someone to follow you. So if they like the reel and they just want to go ahead and follow you, they just tap on the right side of the screen and they do it right then. So that's why it's such a great, growth tool. But what I was going to say also, what you were saying about the types of reels to make and the content, go back to content you already created. Go into your Instagram, your anything, your Facebook, wherever you want to go, your podcast, whatever you got, stuff you've already made, and make reels about those things. Like, nobody's going to remember really what you posted 6 months ago on Instagram. It's okay. Just scroll back a little, go back through that and use those as ideas.
Right. And that's the thing, like, you're in it, and not even, especially when it's written words, they're definitely not going to remember what it was. And you put it in a video format and it's totally different.
And even if they do remember, it's okay, because it's a different format and it's new and it's fresh and it's fun. So it doesn't matter.
Yep. Super smart. So you have obviously given us a ton of tips about how to use Instagram Reels, how it's worked for you, and lit a fire under someone else's butt that's doing the interview to make sure that I actually
get it, Jenny. Come on.
do my Reels and get them done. But you have a freebie that we're going to link to in the show notes that helps them really have tips that helps with Instagram Reels. We're going to make sure that we link to that so that everybody can get that.
Yes.
Where else are the best places to connect with you?
Instagram for sure would be the number one. So at Britney Crosson, follow me, send me a message, tell me you heard me on Jenny's show. I would love to say hello. I'm all about the DMs and the conversations. There's a link in my bio there that goes to all kinds of wonderful places, but you can also go to BritneyCrosson.com to learn more about me, what kind of services I offer in my business. There's always something cool and fun going on in my world over here. So yeah, follow me wherever. Find me. I'm everywhere. I don't know. TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn. Like, just find me, Britney Crosson.
That works. That's perfect. Britney, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my audience. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it. You heard a couple different times where I was either making a face or I had a look like, oh my goodness, I was just able to connect all the dots. And we record these via Zoom and she can see me. So I wanted to make sure that I explained what those faces were, why she might have hesitated, but it does. Everything makes so much more sense. It totally built her brand using Instagram Reels. And she was very intentional on the content that she put out so that it would build her brand. So please, you are going to take the time to put emphasis on Reels and create content for Instagram Reels. Make sure that it is in line with your brand. Don't just randomly start creating Reels that don't make any sense for who you are or what you do. Now, obviously, you're going to want to make sure that you grab Britney's Instagram Reels guide. Send me a DM at Jenny_Melrose that you want that one, as well as if your Instagram isn't quite up to par or you're not sure if it is or you're looking for more engagement, make sure you ask for my Instagram engagement guide. You can, as always, hop over to the show notes to get those, but you can also very easily send me a DM on Instagram to give you the links to those. All right, you guys, as always, I appreciate it so much when you take the time to leave a review. I know I say this every single week, but it truly does make it so much easier for me to get great guests like Britney to share her knowledge when she sees that there are reading reviews and people that are actually listening to the podcast. Because sometimes we do feel like, is anybody out there? And I know you've all gone through that with your own content as well. So if you could leave me a rating and review, I truly, truly do appreciate it. All right, you guys, until next time, I will see you all then.